You don't start your week by checking your phone. You don't start your week by checking your inbox, scrolling social media, or letting the world tell you who to be. You begin with command. Because if you don't command your week, it will control you. If you don't dictate the tone, distractions will. And if you don't enter your Monday with clarity and fire, mediocrity will greet you with comfort and drag you back into average. This is how you should begin every week. With a standard, not a task list, not a set of goals that fade by Tuesday, but a standard of who you are, how you show up, and what you will not tolerate from yourself. Because the week does not belong to the prepared, it belongs to the pre-decided. Those who already know before the world asks what they're building, what they're becoming, what they're not available for. You don't ease into the week. You ignite into it. You don't drift into Monday. You drive straight into it, eyes locked, feet grounded, mind sharpened. You begin your week with alignment. That means asking the question most never do. Is the life I say I want reflected in the way I've planned my next 7 days? Because if it's not, that's not a calendar. That's a graveyard for your potential. Every slot filled with things that drain you, distract you, dilute you. That's not ambition. That's avoidance wearing productivity's mask. You begin your week with truth. Brutal truth. Radical truth. The kind that doesn't let you hide behind busy or someday. Because the week isn't waiting for you to feel ready. It's already moving. And if you want to lead your life instead of being led by it, you must walk into the week with authority. You wake up early. Not because it's trendy, but because your mission demands it. You write your intentions. Not because it's cute, but because clarity is your currency. You move your body. Not because of image, but because discipline demands a vessel strong enough to hold it. You begin your week with ritual, silence before noise, stillness before schedule, sacred reflection before shallow reaction. Because the way you begin determines the way you build. Then we go deeper because how you begin isn't just about the first hour. It's about the first mentality. And the ones who win the week, they don't start with what do I have to do? They start with who do I have to become? That question changes everything. It changes how you speak, how you walk into rooms, how you approach the hard tasks, the heavy lifts, the hidden hours. Because now you're not living on default. You're living on design. You've made a decision. This week does not define you. You define it. And when you move like that, the world takes notice. Not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. Clear in intention. Clear in tone. Clear in the fact that your time is not up for auction. Your focus is not for sale. Your energy is not available to the urgent, only the important. This is how you should begin every week. By clearing the clutter. Not just your desk, your mind. You audit your thoughts. You call out every limiting belief that tried to sneak in over the weekend. You silence the lies before they take root. Because you know, if you don't program your mind, the world will. So you program it. You remind it. You retrain it. I am not who I was last week. I am not bound to last week's outcomes. I am here to grow, not repeat. You say it like a declaration. You breathe it like fuel. You write it until it becomes your instinct. Because this week is not random. It's not recycled. It's not another blur of meaningless tasks. This week is a battlefield. And warriors don't walk in sleepy. They walk in ready. And so do you. Then let's keep going. Because the battlefield doesn't care about your intentions. It responds to your execution. And this is how you begin every week like a warrior. You don't start with goals. You start with standards. Because goals are distant. Standards are daily. Anyone can say, I want to succeed this year. But only the rare few declare, I will not end today without honoring the level I've committed to. And that level? It's not based on how you feel. It's based on what you've decided. You've decided that showing up is the minimum. That excellence is non-negotiable. That focus is not something you try to find, it's something you protect like it feeds your family. Because it does. You begin every week with boundaries. Boundaries around your time, your energy, your emotional bandwidth. Not because you're cold, because you're committed. Committed to living in alignment. Committed to doing fewer things better. Committed to being impossible to knock off course. Because you understand, every yes is an agreement with who you're becoming, or an agreement with the version of you that never changed. And you've made your choice. You start your week by choosing powerfully. Powerfully means you say no with confidence. You say yes with full presence. You say not now to the things that dilute you, even when they look like opportunities. Because this is how the uncommon begin their week, with intention over impulse, with structure over speed, with purpose over pressure. You don't rush. You root. And from that root, you rise. Then let's rise higher, because when your roots are deep, your reach becomes unlimited. This is how you begin every week. You set the tone not with noise, but with non-negotiables. You hydrate your body. You command your mind. You move your feet before your feelings catch up. Because the longer you wait for alignment, the faster momentum slips through your hands. The week doesn't wait. So neither do you. You don't hope to get back on track. You design the track, brick by brick, habit by habit, promise by unbreakable promise to yourself. Because if you can't trust your own word, why should the world trust your vision? This is how winners begin the week, with small wins that compound into unstoppable identity. You make the bed with precision. You hit the workout with intention. You sit down with clarity. And in doing so, you've already won before anyone else has even shown up. Because most people are starting the week by catching up. You're starting it by pulling ahead. This is how the future is built. Not in someday, not in big moments, but in Monday mornings that look like declarations. When your alarm goes off and you don't hit snooze, you declare. When you review your plan and execute it without flinching, you declare. When you meet resistance without shrinking, you declare who you are. And that declaration, it echoes through the entire week. It shifts the way you walk, talk, think, respond. Because the world responds not to need. It responds to certainty. And certainty is what you bring now. Then let's go all in, because certainty isn't something you find, it's something you build. And this is how you build it at the beginning of every single week. By showing up early, by starting before you're ready, by refusing to be led by emotion and choosing to be led by vision, because your emotions don't know your mission. They only know comfort. But your vision, it remembers why you started. It reminds you what's at stake. It returns you to your path when the world tries to pull you in 20 directions. You don't wake up to survive Monday. You wake up to dominate the direction of your destiny. And that domination isn't loud. It's consistent. It's quiet repetition. It's doing the thing you said you'd do long after the mood you set it in is gone. You begin your week by aligning with integrity. That means your words match your actions. Your calendar reflects your values. Your rituals support your reality, not sabotage it. This is how you separate yourself. Not by doing more, by doing what matters most without exception. Because the week is not measured by how busy you are. It's measured by how aligned you are. Busy people burn out. Aligned people build. So you build. You build the mindset that holds when plans break. You build the clarity that cuts through confusion. You build the habits that move without hesitation. You've moved from I'll try to I always do. From I hope to I decide. From I'll wait and see to I'll lead and shape. Because you're not here to manage time. You're here to command it. And every time you command your week, the week bends to your will. Not because it's easy, but because you're clear. You begin your week with gratitude so deep, it silences every voice that says you need more before you start. Because gratitude doesn't make you settle. It makes you stronger. It reminds you already have enough to build. You already have the air, the mind, the body, the freedom. What you need now is use of it. You begin your week with ownership. No more blaming time. No more blaming distractions. No more blaming the past. If you're distracted, cut it. If you're unprepared, fix it. If you've drifted, return with force. Because there is no growth without gravity. And every week has gravity. It will pull on your time, pull on your focus, pull on your resolve. But the one who rises anyway, the one who meets Monday like a warrior, not a worrier, that's the one who wins. So how do you begin every week? With structure, with sovereignty, with a spirit too aligned to break, too disciplined to wait, and too clear to be confused. This is how you move from busy to built. This is how you stop surviving weeks and start stacking legacy. This is how you stop being overwhelmed by the calendar and start commanding every square inch of it with purpose. This is how you begin like you've already won. Then we keep going because winners don't begin the week with hope. They begin it with fire. And fire doesn't wait for the wind to be right. It creates its own weather. That's what you've become. A walking atmosphere, a force of nature that doesn't ask the world for energy. You bring it with you. You begin your week with clarity so sharp, it cuts through every excuse before it leaves your mouth. Clarity that says, this is what I'm building. This is what I will not negotiate. This is where my focus lives and nowhere else. Because now you understand the battle isn't against distractions. It's against indecision. And indecision is the thief of momentum. But when you move with clarity, every hour becomes a weapon. Every block of time becomes a seed. Every action becomes a vote for your future. That's how you begin your week. Not emotionally, not reactively, but strategically. You set your targets like someone who intends to hit them. You walk through your day like someone who already owns the outcome. You don't see how it goes. You make it go the way you see. And when problems come, because they always will, you don't panic. You pivot. Because your peace doesn't live in everything going right. It lives in knowing you are right with yourself, right with your schedule, right with your habits, right with the person staring back at you in the mirror. That's how you begin the week. Not waiting for the world to get easier, but rising because you got stronger. Then let's elevate further, because you're not here to manage chaos. You're here to master rhythm. And rhythm is how champions begin the week. Not by accident, not by adrenaline, but by design. You don't wake up wondering what to do. You wake up walking in a system that sustains success. You've built the habits. You've locked in the structure. You've become a machine of momentum that no feeling can interfere with. This is how you should begin every week. You revisit your why, not just as a slogan on a wall, but as a fire in your soul. You say it out loud. You write it again. You feel it until your discipline becomes devotion. Because when you remember your why, you stop asking if you can, and you start asking how fast. You begin the week with the mindset of someone who's already arrived mentally and is now simply executing physically. The vision is done. The belief is set. Now it's time to move, like someone who doesn't just dream, but delivers. This week isn't about proving yourself. It's about expressing who you already are. And that expression, it shows up in how you speak, how you plan, how you protect your focus like it holds your freedom, because it does. This is how uncommon people begin uncommon weeks. Not hoping to feel ready, but becoming so ready, the world adjusts to your energy. You walk in the room and the room listens. Because you're not chasing the vibe. You are the vibration. Then we keep rising, because when the vibration is right, the world doesn't resist. it rearranges. This is how you begin every week when you're building something the average can't understand. You guard your gates, your time, your energy, your mind, because you know every moment is a transaction. And you refuse to spend your currency on what doesn't multiply your mission. You're not scrolling for motivation. You're producing momentum. You're not reacting to life. You're architecting it with silence before strategy, with stillness before speed, with strength before the storm even hits, because you're not afraid of what's coming. You've already trained for it. You've built your identity in the dark. You've forged your resolve in repetition. You've buried every excuse under layers of discipline so deep, nothing shallow can shake it. This is how you begin every week. With sovereignty over your state, you choose your energy. You choose your tone. You choose your direction. No longer led by emotion. No longer sabotaged by past patterns. No longer looping last week's mistakes into this week's mission. You start fresh, not because you failed, but because you learned. You walk into the week not looking for ease, but for pressure that reveals your next level. Because pressure is your playground now. And you're not running from the weight, you're running toward it. Because you know what would break most people builds you. Then we go even further into the realm where only the discipline can breathe, where the air is thin, but the vision is crystal clear. Because this is how you begin every week when you're done being average. You don't just plan your time, you assign your greatness. You assign your mind to focus. You assign your energy to execution. You assign your emotions to serve your outcome, not sabotage it. You stop asking what if. You start asking what's next. No drama, no delay, just deliberate action. Because hesitation is the language of the unsure. And you are decided now. Every meeting is a mission. Every conversation is a contribution. Every breath is intentional. And when interruptions come, as they always do, you don't flinch. You filter. You ask, does this serve the vision? Does this align with my standard? Does this amplify my direction? If the answer is no, it dies right there. Not with guilt, with grace and precision. Because you don't owe the world your availability. You owe your future your full attention. And that future, it doesn't start next year. It doesn't start when things settle down. It starts now, this week, this Monday, this moment. And how you treat this moment is the seed of your legacy. Because if you can command 1 hour, you can command a day. If you can command a day, you can command a week. And if you can command a week, you can change your entire destiny. That's how it starts. Not with noise, with intention. Then we keep going. Because legacy isn't a mystery, it's a method. And you've already chosen the path where most turn back. This is how you begin every week when mediocrity is no longer an option. You speak life into your days before anyone else speaks doubt. You open your week with words that build, not break. You remind yourself, I am not here to survive the schedule. I'm here to steer the system. Because systems don't care how you feel. They respond to how you move. And now, you move like someone who's already arrived mentally, even if the world hasn't caught up physically. You walk with clarity, not because everything is perfect, but because you are in alignment. You don't wait for ideal conditions. You create progress inside chaos. You don't beg for time. You command the minutes. And every minute, you breathe this into your week. I will not be moved by emotion. I will not be pulled by distraction. I will not be seduced by ease. Because the version of you that begins with fire is not the same one that used to coast through Mondays hoping for motivation. That version is gone, replaced by someone whose movement is rooted in mission. You begin your week with the end in mind, not the weekend. The vision, and every hour, is a brick in that foundation. Every meeting, every rep, every hard thing done without applause. It all counts now because you count it. You track, you measure, you master. Not for the world's approval, but because the world you're building demands nothing less. Then we keep rising because when your intention is pure and your execution is precise, results become a byproduct. This is how you begin every week when you're building something eternal. You strip away the unnecessary and you strengthen the essential. You don't chase everything. You hone in on what matters. You simplify your life to amplify your purpose. And every move becomes deliberate. You eliminate the noise. You mute the opinions. You sharpen the few things that build the real you, and you do them with unmatched consistency. Because you've realized consistency beats intensity when intensity fades. And while others wait for a spark, you've become the fire. You're not interested in impressing people for a moment. You're interested in impacting lives for a lifetime. And that impact, it starts on Mondays. It starts in your habits. It starts when you refuse to start your week unconscious. You don't stumble into greatness. You schedule it. You schedule growth. You schedule rest. You schedule your focus like it funds your future, because it does. This is no longer about hustle. This is about harmony. Not balance, but alignment, where your words, your walk, and your work all speak the same truth. I am no longer waiting to become. I am becoming right now. That's how you begin every week. Not wondering if you'll get there, but moving like it's already written. And your only job now is to live it fully. Then let's seal it in, because the way you begin is the way you build, and the way you build determines the way you become. This is how you should begin every week. You lead with presence, not scattered, not stretched, but centered. You don't rush into the week. You root into it. You breathe. You align. You remember, this week is not happening to you. It's being shaped by you. And in that moment, before the world screams, before the inbox dings, before the distractions hunt you down, you reclaim your posture. You remind your spirit, I am not a reactor. I am a creator. You create clarity. You create momentum. You create peace in how you move, not just in how you meditate. Because you know, peace is not the absence of pressure. Peace is the presence of alignment under pressure. You're no longer impressed by the noise. You're obsessed with the result, the deep, quiet, undeniable result of living in a way where your week is not spent but invested. And every investment compounds. Every act of focus, every disciplined morning, every clean boundary, every full presence in the now it builds. Not fast, but forever. This is how you should begin every week. Not with pressure to perform, but with the posture of someone who's already decided, I don't need the world to give me a great week. I bring one with me. It begins with a question the average mind doesn't ask. Not, how do I succeed in my city? Not, how do I get noticed in my circle? But rather, what does the world need from me? The moment you ask that question, you shift. You shift from local to global, from reactive to visionary, from consumer of culture to creator of impact. You leave the borders of comfort. You step beyond the walls of familiarity. You wake up to a truth that few ever dare to face. You were not born to fit inside a box. You were born to echo across continents. A global mindset is not geography. It is psychology. It's not where you live. It's how you think. It's a refusal to see the world through the keyhole of your own upbringing. It's the ability to stretch your vision so wide, your values so deep, your energy so universal, that you become undeniable in any language. This is not about chasing trends from other countries. This is about transcending borders with timeless principles. A global mindset begins in the temple of the mind. It is forged in the fire of curiosity and humility. It's understanding this one reality. You do not know everything, but you can learn from everyone. You must begin to train your mind to think globally, not just by where you go, but by what you expose it to. Books beyond your culture, conversations beyond your community, challenges beyond your comfort zone. The average person surrounds themselves with sameness, same thoughts, same routines, same beliefs. But if you want to build something that reaches beyond your neighborhood, beyond your nation, beyond your native tongue, you must seek diversity not just in skin, but in spirit. You must think like a student of the world, not a critic of cultures, but a collector of wisdom. You must carry yourself with the understanding that every person you meet carries a piece of the map you don't yet hold. And when you speak, when you create, when you build, you do so with reverence. Because you're not just building for today. You're building for every soul who has ever been overlooked, undervalued, misunderstood. A global mindset demands that you expand not just your business, but your soul. It demands a mind rooted in awareness, a heart rooted in empathy, and hands rooted in action. Because this is what the world responds to now. We do not need louder voices, we need wiser ones. We do not need more influence, we need more integrity. We do not need bigger platforms, we need bigger hearts. To cultivate a global mindset, you must first dismantle the borders within yourself. You must let go of small thinking, the idea that your struggle is the only struggle, that your market is the only market, that your way is the only way. A global mindset is built on curiosity, not certainty, on questions, not conclusions, on conversations, not declarations. You do not need to know everything, but you do need to remain open, radically open to being changed by what you learn. You must learn to speak with depth, not just volume, to communicate with clarity, not just charisma, to translate your value across worldviews, not by changing who you are, but by expanding how you serve. Because impact travels at the speed of relevance, and relevance requires awareness. Mindset is the seed, belief is the root, but clarity is the sunlight that reveals what your vision could truly become. To think globally, you must see clearly. You must be able to answer without flinching. What do I stand for? What am I building? And why does it matter not just here, but everywhere? Because a global mindset begins with a global vision. A vision not just for profit, but for possibility. A vision that doesn't just chase success, but shapes culture. A vision so magnetic it draws people not because it is popular, but because it is necessary. You don't need to know how to reach millions yet. You just need to start thinking like someone who can. That means eliminating the excuses that keep you small. I'm not fluent enough. I'm not known enough. I don't understand other markets. I don't know where to begin. Those aren't truths. They're just unchallenged assumptions. And assumptions are the cages that kill greatness. Every brand that went global was once a whisper in the mind of someone who dared to believe their work was worthy of translation. Your message must be built to travel. Your skills must be made to scale. Your presence must be practiced in every room, small or great, as if the whole world is watching. Because one day, it will. And you won't get there by waiting. You'll get there by working. Not working harder, but working wider. Wider in vision. Wider in empathy. Wider in reach. That requires discipline. Discipline to study when others scroll. Discipline to refine your words, your tone, your strategy, until it connects with people beyond your zip code. Discipline to build something so real, so rooted in value, so universal in need that borders become irrelevant. Discipline is the foundation on which global legacies are built. Because the world rewards those who don't just dream but deliver, who don't just announce but align, who don't just launch but listen. And that requires a different kind of awareness. The kind that says, I will not be the loudest in the room, but I will be the clearest. I will not pander to markets, I will understand them. I will not copy trends. I will create timeless resonance. And you will fail. You will misread. You will misunderstand. But that's the cost of mastery. A global mindset is not about being perfect. It's about being committed. Committed to evolving. Committed to learning. Committed to serving at scale without losing your soul. You must learn to hold two truths at once. I am enough as I am, and yet I will grow beyond what I've ever been. This is the balance of the global thinker, the sacred paradox of humility and boldness. And once you embrace that, you begin to build different. You build not for the applause, but for the echo. Not for the reaction, but for the revolution. Not for the trend, but for the transformation. And suddenly, what you create is no longer limited to your language, your land, your logic. It becomes something more. It becomes legacy. A global mindset is not a destination. It's a discipline. It's the daily decision to rise above the noise of your environment and tune into the frequency of purpose, the frequency that cuts across culture, across context, across constraint. It's realizing that you are not here to fit into the system. You are here to stretch it. You cannot lead the world if you only study your street. You cannot serve the globe if your empathy stops at your borders. You cannot be taken seriously on the world stage if you only perform for your inner circle. You must develop the ability to see patterns in chaos, to detect opportunity where others only see difference, to communicate without condescension and influence without imposition. You must stop thinking like a resident and start operating like a citizen of possibility. The mind that is global is the mind that is free. Free from cultural arrogance. Free from ideological rigidity. Free from the fear of the other. Because the other is your brother, your sister, your customer, your collaborator. And if you can't speak to them, you'll never sell to them. If you can't understand them, you'll never inspire them. The world doesn't respond to arrogance. It responds to insight, to honesty, to openness, to a message that transcends local dialects and plugs straight into the human condition. And the human condition in every language, every location, craves the same things: truth, value, dignity, empowerment. When you lead with that, your content becomes communion. Your offer becomes an invitation. Your voice becomes a vehicle for connection, not division. That is the power of a global mindset. But it must be trained. It must be tested. It must be lived. You train it through learning. Not just academic learning, but experiential, immersive, sometimes uncomfortable learning. You sit in rooms where you're the minority. You listen to stories that don't match your script. You embrace questions that shake your assumptions. You develop the emotional maturity to feel disoriented without retreating, to feel challenged without collapsing, to be corrected without becoming defensive. Because greatness has no room for ego. A global thinker is not threatened by difference, they're transformed by it. And when you lean into that transformation, you stop building for clicks and start building for contribution. You stop asking, what's trending? And start asking, what's timeless? You stop asking, how do I win more followers? And start asking, how do I earn deeper trust? Because trust is the only currency that crosses all borders. And trust is not built in the viral post, it's built in the unseen integrity behind the screen. It's built when your message matches your motive. It's built when your brand reflects your beliefs. It's built when you care more about your impact than your influence. And in the global economy of attention, those who are trusted will always rise. Not because they shout louder, but because they carry something deeper, something rooted, something real, something the world feels before they ever translate a word. This is how movements are born. Not in the megaphone, but in the mirror. Not in the strategy, but in the soul. A global mindset demands that you stop building with your ego and start building with your essence. Your essence is what scales. It's what allows you to be seen across cultures, heard across belief systems, welcomed into rooms your resume could never earn. Because when your essence speaks, it bypasses the brain and lands in the heart. And the heart is borderless. Doesn't care where you're from. It only cares what you bring. Do you bring presence? Do you bring depth? Do you bring truth? That's what the world needs now. Not more noise. Not more content. More clarity. More consciousness. More creators who dare to build bridges where others build walls. And if you're reading this, if this message found you, it means you're one of them. You're not just here to build a business. You're here to reshape how business is done. To prove that capitalism and compassion can coexist. That scale and soul can be siblings. That profit and purpose are not mutually exclusive. They are magnetically linked when done right. You want a global brand? Start by becoming a global being. Start by living with global integrity. Start by thinking beyond transactions and into transformations. That's how legacies are built. Not in one country, not on one stage, but across the world, one heart at a time. And when the legacy becomes the focus, everything you do shifts. The way you write shifts from clever to clear. The way you sell shifts from pushy to powerful. The way you lead shifts from authority to authenticity. Because you're no longer operating for attention. You're operating from intention. You're not trying to take from the market, you're adding to it. You're not shouting to be heard, you're speaking to be understood. You're not showing off, you're showing up. This is the posture of the global mind. It's not about being the best in the world, it's about being the best for the world. It's about realizing that when you speak, someone on the other side of the planet, someone whose name you'll never know, might need that message to breathe again. Might need that story to believe again. Might need that product to begin again. And that is not a small thing. That is not a marketing strategy. That is a sacred responsibility. Because the moment you decide to step out as a global voice, you stop representing just your business. You start representing possibility. You carry the banner for those who think they're too late, too under-resourced, too invisible. You remind them, through your consistency, that the world is listening if you dare to speak from truth. That's what a global mindset births, a global movement. But make no mistake, this isn't easy. You will be misunderstood. You will be judged. You will be mocked for thinking big, criticized for standing tall, underestimated for dreaming wide. And that's fine, because global thinkers don't answer to the crowd. They answer to the calling. And the calling doesn't speak in applause, it speaks in alignment. You'll know you're on the right path, not when it's easy, but when it's honest. When your voice feels like home. When your work feels like worship. When your audience feels like family, not followers. You don't need 1 million people to start a global shift. You need one message, delivered with depth, wrapped in courage, backed by conviction, and repeated with resilience. You don't need to be everywhere. You need to be so rooted in who you are that wherever you show up, you create resonance. Because resonance travels farther than reach, and truth cuts deeper than translation. That's why a global mindset is not built in the spotlight. It's built in the silence. It's built in the daily decision to refine your message even when no one responds, to sharpen your craft even when no one claps, to master your mission even when the money hasn't matched yet. Because those who win globally were willing to walk through obscurity with faith. They didn't wait to be discovered. They built something that couldn't be ignored. They built with so much value, so much beauty, so much heart that the world had no choice but to pay attention. And now it's your turn to build what only you can, to speak in a voice that cannot be duplicated, to rise, not just for yourself, but for the ones coming after you. This is your permission to stop playing small, to stop hiding behind cultural limits and geographical excuses, to stop shrinking your message to fit into someone else's box. You were never meant to think local. You were never meant to build safe. You were meant to break ground, to cross oceans, to plant seeds of transformation on every continent, to live like your ideas belong on the world stage because they do, to speak like your words can shift systems because they can, to act like your contribution can change the course of history because it will, but only if you decide, only if you claim the identity of a global leader, not in ego, not in entitlement, in service, in love, in vision. And when you do, when you fully embody that global frequency, the world won't just listen, it will follow. Because light always draws the eyes of those walking in darkness. And when you become the kind of entrepreneur who builds with light, your legacy becomes inevitable. And so the shift begins, not in your strategy, not in your structure, but in your spirit. You start walking differently. You start writing differently. Not because your skills changed overnight, but because your identity did. You are no longer a voice among millions. You are a frequency, a signal, cutting through the static of mediocrity. That's what a global mindset does. It doesn't just teach you how to expand, it awakens you to who you've always been. The one who didn't quite fit in. The one who saw too far, felt too deep, dreamed too big. The one who was told, be realistic, and thought, why would I trade destiny for approval? The one who carried vision that didn't belong to one culture, one town, one tribe, but belonged to humanity. And now you're here, not to conform, but to contribute, not to impress, but to initiate, not to get more followers, but to forge a future that outlives your name. A global mindset isn't a tactic. It's a torch, and the world is waiting for you to carry it. Not perfectly, but courageously, to light the path with your words, to stretch the map with your movement, to build bridges in places others only build borders. So, what does it take? It takes vision that sees past the next post. It takes empathy that listens before it speaks. It takes fire that doesn't wait to be validated because it's already verified by the truth inside you. You must become relentless in refinement, obsessed with excellence, devoted to clarity, because your ideas deserve precision, your audience deserves purity, and your legacy demands perseverance. Do not mistake the silence of the world for absence of momentum. The seeds are growing. The roots are deepening. And when the time comes, when your voice meets the moment, when your message collides with the need, what once felt slow will feel sudden. That's how global shifts happen. Not with a bang, but with a build, with one decision, then another, with one message, then a movement, with one act of integrity multiplied by 1,000 days of not quitting. This is your age of expansion, not of ego, but of essence. Let your gifts stretch their arms. Let your ideas stretch their legs. Let your vision rise like the sun and sweep across every time zone. You have what it takes not because you know it all, but because you care enough to keep showing up, to keep learning, to keep evolving until your work is no longer just seen, but felt, from boardrooms to backstreets, from Seoul to Sao Paulo, from Lagos to Los Angeles. Your story, your soul, your strategy, all speaking one universal language, elevation. So rise, and in your rising, lift others. In your clarity, illuminate others. In your action, free others from the lie that they must stay small. You don't need a passport to think globally. You need permission from yourself. And you don't need to ask for it anymore. You've outgrown the borders of average. You've heard the call. Now step out, step wide, step global, and build what no algorithm can ever replicate. A message forged in conviction, a business anchored in truth, a life that transcends limits because you decided to. You are the message. You are the movement. You are the mindset. And the world is ready. Are you?